Hi, I'm Paul Berry, New Hampshire Paddlers Leadership Chair, and with the help of Bill James, New Hampshire Chapter Paddlers Communications Chair, we've created a video to show you how to enter AMC trips in 2021. There have been some changes based on COVID, and this will be a chance to review them and also refresh how you enter trips into the system. To enter an AMC trip, I first have to get to the AMC Activities database, and so I'm going to do that by going to activities.outdoors.org/login. There are numerous other ways you can get there. This will give me a login page. It knows my login name from AMC, and I'm going to enter my password. And at this point I would click Submit to actually go into the database. We're in the Activities database now, but through the magic of video editing, instead of seeing my name up here, we're seeing Bill James's name because he's what's called a contributor, which is mostly like what you are. And this is what his screen would look like. My screen is a little different because I'm called an approver, or I have approval authority within the database. So I wanted to show you a contributor's screen. Most of the things are the same, and so what Bill would be doing is going down to add an event. So Bill has moved down to add an event and click the down arrow, and his choices are only paddling. Yours could be more if you also lead for other committees within the New Hampshire chapter, but most of you probably are just going to see paddling. So if he clicks on that, so Bill clicked add a paddling trip, and now the screen comes up so that we can populate the information for the trip. You'll notice that all of these have red asterisks next to each field, which means these fields are required. There are some fields that we'll come to later on that aren't required fields. Also, this is actually a static picture, so the clock isn't moving, but you only have an hour to get this done. So I would recommend strongly that you've typed everything into Word or into Notepad so you can do cut and paste on the big fields anyway. So with that, this is the same as what I'm going to have on my database, except for the very bottom field, which we'll show later. So now I'm going to switch back to my input, and we'll enter a trip. We're back in the database, this time as me again, because the fields that we're going to enter data in are the same, whether you're an approver or a contributor, except for the very bottom field. So I've already gone ahead and typed in the title and the dates, being out in November, and the region. And under the activity, I'm going to say that it's paddling. And I could also use other subfields, but I'm just going to leave it as paddling. Right now I'm going to leave the audience blank because I want to show you what happens when we don't fill in a field. So I could put in the Latin long. I put in a picture because if you don't put in a picture, AMC will either try and figure out a picture for you, which you might not like, or they'll put in just their logo, which really doesn't give anybody that much information. Can have additional information, and if there was a charge, I could put it here. There would normally be a charge for pool sessions, but most of our trips don't have charges. So it knew I was logged in, so it defaulted to me being the leader. I removed the phone number and said, no, I don't want the phone number to show, but I left my email and I said, yes, I do want that to show on the web. So that'll be available to anybody, for anybody to see it. I could choose an image, which I'm going to choose not to do, If I had a second leader, I could add that person. If I had a co-leader, I would add that person. And then we get down to registration. And this is where things are much different than they used to be. So now there are two choices. If it's a webinar and I were to click that, it's going to ask me for the external URL so someone could click on it and get to the webinar, and hopefully there would have been text telling them when that webinar was. The other option, and most common one that we're going to use, is it's an in-person opportunity. So now the start date of it asks you for a start date when people can start registering. And so if the trip was on the 11th, I can really start any time I want before then. For a demo, I'll show you that I'm just going to say it can start today. And for the end date, I'm going to move it way out to November, and I'm going to make it, I'm sorry, I guess it was the 13th actually. So I'm going to say we're going to end it a few days before that. Then it's going to ask if we want to limit participants, and the answer is almost always going to be yes. And so now you can choose up to, I think, 10. So for this pool session, though, I'm going to say that there's only going to be 7 of us, and that does include me as the leader. Now, you have to put what number you want here, because once you send it in for submission and it gets approved, you're not going to be able to change that. So I would advise that you go higher, because even though it says you can have that many, you don't have to approve that many later on. You can also say I want to have a wait list, and so I'm going to let 12 people sign up for the wait list. This way, if I get 7 people in and someone backs out, or someone I screen doesn't actually fit the trip, then I have people on the wait list that I can go to. All right, so we've entered all the information for registration. There are a bunch of, they call them questions, but they're really textual information from the AMC. This is going to go out to anyone who tries to enter, telling them all about the COVID restrictions. In addition to that, the chapter can define their own chapter level questions, and the committee, in this case paddling, could define theirs. At this point, neither one of those have happened. In addition to all of this, there's also a notes field that you can click to expand if you want to add some notes into it. So that said, I'm going to actually go ahead and try to submit this for approval, and you're going to see that it's going to warn me that the trip doesn't have a Latin long, and so I'm going to say continue anyway. And in addition to the fact that it didn't have a Latin long, it found another error, so I'm going to say OK, and it's going to take me back up to that field that I told you I hadn't filled in called audience, which does have a red asterisk, so it's required to have something put in there. So now I'm going to go in and say, well, this is for adults. So having done that, if there were other fields that it needed me to deal with, it would have given me those as well. And so now I could try to approve it again. Or, I'm sorry, submit it for approval. Another thing I can do before submitting it for approval is I can actually ask it to show me a preview of what this is going to look like. And when I do that, you'll notice that it appears everything is grayed out, but if I scroll all the way back up to the top, you'll see that I'm going to see that it's going to show me, that there's the 2021 fall pool session, has a picture of people in the pool, and then gives me all of the information that I had entered It does say that the fee is free, and it shows that I'm the leader. I'm a little surprised it did not show my email address, but I think it actually will. So now if I'm satisfied with that, I can click close it. Now I'm back in the file in the editing mode still, and so I can make any changes I want by scrolling up or down and fix any things that I may have seen in the preview, or I can scroll down to the bottom, and there I have a number of selections, including Submit for Approval, which I'll show you shortly. Okay, I'm actually back on Bill's file that he made for me, Bill James. As I said, he is a contributor, and the parts I was just doing, I was telling you that I was previewing it or I was submitting it for approval, but I didn't actually show you the tabs because those tabs look different since I'm an approver. But here's what the tabs would look like if you're a contributor. So you filled out all the information that you wanted, and you have the choice now of previewing it, which I showed you how to do, of saving it and editing it for later if you aren't sure you've got all the data you want, and also you do only have a 1 hour time limit to do this, and AMC will log you out, and if you haven't done a submission or a save, you're going to lose all that data. You can also cancel, and if you have saved one and brought it back up and made additional changes, you could clear the changes. But most likely what you're going to do after you preview it is submit it to the approval, submit it to an approver for approval. And so you would click there, and it would go off, and the approvers would start getting pinged at noon and midnight, telling them that there are trips to review. And in paddling, we have about 6 people that can do that. So it almost never takes very long to get a trip approved. Okay, so I'm at the bottom, and when you submit, when you click Submit for Approval or Cancel or Save for Editing, it will close the page, and you'll be back up at the top, and now you can go up here and you can click Log Out to end your session with the activities database. So it's been a while since I submitted the trip for approval, and now I'm going to go and see if the trip has made it to be approved, and so it will be online. So to do this, I'm on the New Hampshire chapter website. I'm going to click on Activities Groups, and I'm going to go down to Paddling. And now here in Paddling is a link I can click to see all of the upcoming paddling trips, of which there are 5, and one of them is in fact the pool session, so it has been approved. You'll notice that it doesn't say register now because I did change the registration to November 1st, since this is way out on November 13th. So now I'm there, now I can click the pool session, and it's going to bring it up in a different tab. So here's the pool session online with the data that we saw in the preview, but you will notice that the leader now my email is showing up to the public, so people can use that, and also that does mean other people can contact me for other reasons. You can say don't show it, and then it will say contact the leader or something to that end, and they can click on that and submit some data, and then it'll get to me. So there is a way to do it without exposing your email if you'd rather do that. So with that said, that ends the video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching.